All right. The last page of this epic section, D.1 combined with D.2. If you made it this far and did all these exercises, congratulations. Um, if you did them and you're checking your answers here, great. Feel free to fast forward until you see more of the answers or just use the PDF notes and then you can skip around to the parts that you need if you got them wrong. Or if you got stuck, remember to watch until you get unstuck. And then once you're unstuck, try to do as much as you can yourself and then come back to check. So yeah, let's take this one. So this one, if it just has x squared in it, then you can isolate the x squared first and then take square roots. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to add 48 to both sides to get the x squared part by itself. That gives you 3x squared equals 48. We need to cancel out this multiplication by 3. Divide that by 3 to just give you x squared. That's isolating the x squared, but got to do the same thing on both sides. So 48 divided by 3 is 16. So we have x squared equals 16. And once it's just x squared, you can take a square root to cancel out that x squared. And over here, it's going to be the plus or minus root 16. So that gives you x equals, well, the square root of 16, what do you square to get 16? It would be 4. So 4, but positive or negative 4 should work. Okay, so if you forgot the plus or minus part there, then you have half of the answer. So the plus or minus is actually really important. There's times where it's going to matter a whole lot, especially as you go on to trigonometry and calculus. That's going to totally mess things up if you don't include the plus or minus. All right, so anyways, let's keep going here. Here, we're going to do the same thing. Just like we isolated x squared, we got the thing being squared by itself on one side equals negative 16. We want to do that with y plus 2 squared here. So that's why I'm adding 4 to both sides. That just leaves you with y plus 2 squared by itself on one side is equal to 4. Now that you can use a square root to cancel out. So the square root cancels out with that squared. Make sure to include the plus or minus on one side. You get y plus 2 equals plus or minus 2. So then we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. That means that y is equal to either positive 2 minus 2, which is 0, or y is equal to negative 2 minus 2, which gives you y equals negative 4. And both of those are solutions. If you forget the plus or minus, you're only going to get half of the solutions. Okay, so that's that. This time, this one is already in factored form. You have two things being multiplied together to get 0. So that means you could have 2x equals 0, or you could have x minus 4 equals 0. So if 2 times x is 0, well, then that means x is 0. So you could divide both sides by 2. You'll get x equals 0 over 2, which is 0. Or with the other one, x equals 4 makes that part equal to 0. So those are both solutions of that. Whoa, my box went out of control there. There we go. All right, for part D, this one is not factored yet. And you can't just take a square root here because of the fact that you have a 10x. That's not going to work so well. But you can factor this. You can write this as two things being multiplied to get 0. Let's see. Well, in this case, you have a common factor. So one thing could just be 5x. And if you distribute 5x into two terms here, you could do 5x times, let's see, x would make 5x squared. And 5x times 2 is 10x. So now that's factored, and the two terms are multiplied to make 0. So that means either 5x is 0 or x plus 2 is 0. Now dividing both sides by 5 here is going to give you x equals 0, or here dividing both sides, or sorry, subtracting 2 from both sides gives you x equals negative 2. So those are the two solutions of that. Go on to E and F. These ones are a little bit trickier. So with E, first of all, if you have this 3x squared here, then that makes it tricky to factor. I'm going to use the trick we did before where you have 3 times negative 1. Let me show you the trick I'm talking about. Was the steps outlined up here, factoring when the coefficient of x squared isn't 1. So you have that on your previous page if you need to read that. But I'm going to go ahead and do the work here. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. That needs to be the result of multiplying these two numbers. And the B part is 2. 2 needs to be the result of adding them up. So let's see, how about 3 times negative 1 works here? 3 plus negative 1 is 2. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. So let's see, when that means we can split up the 2x here into plus 3x minus 1x. And then that minus 1 there is still there, and it still equals 0. Okay, so now this, we should be able to factor it by grouping. So that's going to be 3x times the quantity x plus 1 is what you get from that first group. These two terms, you can take out a negative 1. So I can just write this as minus 1 times the quantity x plus 1. That should be equal to 0 there. So those are the two groups, and they both have an x plus 1 factor. So let's write it as 3x minus 1 all times x plus 1. So you get that. So now it's in factored form. We have two things being multiplied together here to make 0. So this factor, 3x minus 1, might be 0. Or x plus 1 could be 0. So this one, I'm just going to add the 1 to both sides. You'll get 3x equals 1. Divide everything by 3. You'll get x is 1/3. Or let's see what we get over here. Just subtract 1 from each side, and you'll get x is negative 1. So that's those solutions there. Okay, with this one, let's think. A common mistake here is to say this means either 2x minus 2 is 20 or x minus 4 is 20, because you have it factored on the left side and then there's a 20 over there. But let's see, I'm just going to go ahead and solve this. If I add the 4 to both sides here, you'll get x is 24. All right, so let's just say you want to check this. If you plug this in, you're going to get 2 times 24. Let me write that out again. 2 times 24 minus 2 times 24 minus 4, is that equal to 20? Let's see. 2 times 24 is 48. 48 minus 2 is 46. And 24 minus 4 is 20. Is that when you multiply 46 times 20, do you get 20? No, 46 times 20 is like 920 or something. It's a really big number. It's not 20. So this works with 0 over here because if you make this factor equal to 0, you'll do 0 times a number and get 0. Or if you make x plus 1 equal to 0, you'll be doing any number times 0 is equal to 0. And it's true, anything times 0 is equal to 0, but it's not true that 20 times anything is 20. This doesn't work. All right, so this is a big mistake. So let's go over the right way to do this. So what we need to do here is get 0 on the other side, which means like subtract 20 from both sides. And then you'll be able to use this property of saying either of the factors is 0. Because it works with 0, it doesn't work with 20. But to do that, we're going to need to FOIL this out first. Because it's not really helpful that it's factored right now. So if you FOIL this out, you're going to get 2x times -4, -2 times -4. That's going to give you 2x squared minus 2x minus 8x plus 8 equals 20. And then if you subtract 20 from both sides, you'll have 2x squared minus 10x. And then I'm just combining these terms here to make 10x. And then 8 minus 20 is -12. All right, now that you have 0 here, we can factor the thing on the left. All right, so to factor that, let's see. You could do the same trick I did with the last one where you multiply the a times c. That's going to be 2 times -12. Get you -24. We need two numbers that multiply to make -24 and add up to -10. All right, but that's a pain because I'm forgetting the most important first step, which is to factor out a 2 from all these terms. They all have a common factor of 2. So that's good. If you take out the 2, you'll have x squared minus 5x minus 6. And then this thing is much easier to factor after you take out that 2. You'll have 2 times, let's see, x minus 6 times x plus 1 should work. All right, so now we have 3 factors that might all be 0. This one's going to give you 2 equals 0, but there's no value of x that makes 2 equal to 0. This one gives you x minus 6 is equal to 0, which will give you x equals 6. Again, this one has no solution. I should probably write that part out. And then if x plus 1 is equal to 0, that'll give you x equals -1. So these ones are really your solutions. 6 and -1. Okay, let's look at exercise 6. This is a challenge one. Again, these challenge ones are kind of optional, but you should do it if you're trying to, if you're able to do the other ones and you want to challenge yourself with some harder stuff. So let's see. Both of parts A and B in the last exercise can be solved either by factoring or by taking out square roots. So let's see. With A here, I did this one by taking square roots. So the other way to do this is by factoring. So I actually did both of these by taking square roots at this stage and at this stage. So let's do this by factoring. So we have 3x squared minus 48 equals 0. Okay, so we have 0 on one side. That's good. If you want to factor, if we wanted to factor this, let's see. The first thing you can do is take out the factor of 3. That leaves you with x squared minus 16 equals 0. And wait a second. Gooch this down a little bit. X squared is something squared, and 16 is 4 squared. So this is x squared minus 4 squared equals 0. And that's a difference of squares. So you can use the difference of squares formula, that important one that you're going to need to memorize from the first page, which says this is the same as x plus 2 times x minus 2 equals 0. So that has now been factored. The solutions are going to be, this one will give you x equals negative 2. And this one will give you x equals positive 2. All right, so that's done by factoring, and that's the same thing as we got before. We got x equals plus or, wait a second. That's not the same thing I got before. I messed up. Sorry, this is supposed to be a 4. Whoops. Okay. So that's why it's good to do these more than one way, because you'll catch your mistake. Everybody makes mistakes like this. Well, most everybody. I definitely do. And once you have 2 different methods, you can compare. You can see my mistakes, as I accidentally turned that 4 into a 2 for some reason. I guess I got 4 squared mixed up with 2 squared. But anyways, that is now correct. All right, so that's A. For part B, I did that one with square roots, so let's do that one with factoring now. So we got y plus 2 quantity squared minus 4 equals 0. Just check that I got that right. Y plus 2 squared. Okay. So this is also a difference of squares. Just like you had x squared and 4 squared here, I can write this as y plus 2 squared. Well, that's something squared. That's like the x that we had before. And then minus 4 is minus 2 squared. So that's that. Now we can factor it the same way. This is going to become y plus 2 plus 2. That's the a plus b part. And then we need the a minus b part over here. That would be y plus 2 minus 2 equals 0. And then I can just combine some like terms here. Y plus 2 is just y plus 4. Over here, plus 2 minus 2 is 0. So this is just y. All right, so if this factor is 0, that will give you y equals negative 4. If this other factor is 0, that will give you y equals 0. And those are, well, let me check. Did I get the same solutions as before? Negative 4 and 0? Yes. Yes, I did. So that works out. That is those answers. All right, so thanks for slogging through this video. If you did these challenges and made any progress at all, give yourself a pat on the back. And if you tried hard on these exercises and really gave it your all and checked your answers and didn't give up and didn't just watch the solutions here, then give yourself a pat on the back too. And next up is section 3.1.